Good afternoon. We'll start with a meditation. Please close your eyes, breathe with the music, and relax the body. We'll use our attention to relax the body. Take your attention in the two legs. Start with the right leg, then the left leg. Relax the two legs. Take your attention to the navel and relax the abdomen below the navel. The abdomen above the navel. Take your attention once again down and move your attention through the perineum. Take your attention to the abdomen above the navel and relax the solar plexus. Relax the chest. Move your attention through the back. Relax the back. Relax the two hands, right hand, left hand, the two shoulders. Relax the neck. Loosen the jawbone. Relax the chin. Move your attention through your mouth, the tongue, the teeth, the gums. Move it to the top of the mouth. Relax the palate. Connect the palate to the solar plexus and the solar plexus to the perineum. These 3 points are very important: perineum, solar plexus, palate. Relax the two cheeks. The two nostrils. The two ears, left ear, right ear. Move your attention through them, relax them. The back of the head. The top of the head. The forehead. The two eyes and around the eyes. Move your attention once through the body. If you find tension anywhere, relax it. Feel your body as an empty vessel and that you are occupying the body. Try to feel a separation between yourself and the body. You are not the body, you are in the body. Just as we occupy a hotel room, we occupy the body. Look at the breath. and feel your presence in the body. Divide your attention in two places, the presence in the body and the breath. And let us try to hold this state for 1 minute. Slowly come back. Slowly open your eyes. Today we are going to talk about the emotional mind, the emotional center, the Ace of Hearts. Our emotional mind is that mind which allows us to relate to other people. We have seen before that the raw material of the emotional mind is affection, and the purpose of being born, one of the aims of being born, is to transform that affection into love. So that is the raw material of the emotional mind. As long as the emotional mind is blocked and its vibrational quality very low, it cannot have the capacity to give us a higher experience. The first perception of truth comes through the emotional mind. And the chief cause for blockages in the emotional mind are negative emotions. Not only do we hold a lot of negative emotions, we take joy in expressing, we enjoy expressing the negative emotions. There's a kind of rush which we get when we get angry on someone, put someone down, are better than someone. And this is a negative kind of joy we get, and it has to be observed and seen. So as long as we are holding possessiveness, jealousy, attachments, the energy of the emotional mind will not transform into something higher. And it will not give us that perception, that glimpse of truth which we are searching for. So sadhana, or the spiritual journey, is for most of its part nothing but purification of emotions. This is a center where we get the wonderful feeling of love. That beautiful feeling where sometimes in our life we have touched that feeling. And we will see there are two kinds of love. One is love through attraction, and one is love through value. I'm attracted to a person, and so there is love. And that love can turn into hate at any time. Right? It is a duality kind of love, which sometimes is love, sometimes is hate. But when we love something because of its value, not because of its price, right? Whether it is a person, an object, then that is real love. Real love leads to understanding. Understanding has the quality of love. We know things from the head, but we understand things from the heart. And the energy of the heart is affection. And so in everything that we understand, there is the tinge, there is the what you call color of love in it. Now, in the positive part of the emotional center, we like, we approve, we appreciate, what we call ke koi nahi qadar kariye. In the negative part, we dislike, disapprove, non-acceptance, and we can also condemn someone. This is that center which commands the most powerful energies. We have the thinking center, which works at a certain speed. We have the moving center, which works at a certain speed. We have the instinctive center, which works at a certain speed. But the emotional center is much faster than all of them. And that is why emotions are more like reflex actions. To come to a state of higher consciousness where we are controlling emotions takes years and years of hard work. This is very difficult to observe, and as we said before, we start our observation with the moving center and we learn its connection to the emotional center and thinking center. Now, we had said that there are two higher centers, and those centers are talking to us all the time. But till our lower centers are free of negativity, we cannot be receptive to the higher centers. And most of the negativity is the negative part of the emotional center. So our initial work starts with two steps. One is to work on our reactions, because all reactions are mechanical, not conscious. And the second is to be free of negative emotions. Now, there can be a deep contact between two people's emotional centers. When two people are living together in love, then they don't have to tell the other person anything. The emotional center directly perceives what the other wants, what are the needs of the other, right? And it acts accordingly. And one of the aims at getting married is that two people work on their emotional centers till they come to a state where there is no disagreement between them and everything in life is complementary. Now we'll take the most mechanical part of the emotional center, and that is the Jack of Hearts. These are all our mechanical responses to relationship. We must understand that every impression that comes in from the five senses, it first goes into the instinctive, and immediately the emotional center labels it as like or dislike. And it is so fast. Each moment we are labeling like or dislike. And we saw that when we dislike something in the moment, we connect with the negative part of the emotional center. That can lead to anger, jealousy, negative emotions. Now, what are our mechanical responses to people? Most of them are what you call dictated by rituals, dictated by culture. We'll say good morning, good afternoon, Jai Shri Krishna. But these are all very mechanical responses which lie in the jack of the hearts. The common courtesies, the etiquette we have at the dinner table, right? So all the cultural attitudes are stored over here in the jack of hearts. And we saw previously that of all the centers, the jack holds the memory for each centers. Now, normally we do not observe our automatic gestures, automatic courtesies. If I say good morning, it usually doesn't come in my observation. But if I go to a culture where there is no what you call practice of saying good morning, and there if I try to say good morning, then suddenly I'll observe that I'm uncomfortable. This ritual is not followed over here. Children learn these automatic, what do you call, mechanical responses to life very easily. And especially if you're in a boarding school, you're taught to say good morning, good afternoon, etc., etc. They imitate the elders, they imitate cultures, they imitate what happens in what you call music concerts, political rallies, matches. Now, in the emotional center, there is always a pronounced swing of the pendulum. Supposing I love someone dearly, but at some time that person starts criticizing me, that person starts what you call talking sarcastically to me, or that person becomes aggressive with me, then my love can, in a second, it can turn from love to hate, right? And we see this in the lives of married people. Sometimes they love, sometimes they're irritated, sometimes they love, sometimes they're angry, and the pendulum keeps on swinging from love to hate. And this is something which we must observe over a long time, because this is the duality of life, right? All crowd culture is stored over here. That is the automatic responses of a large group of people. Now, here we have to understand what is crowd culture. Supposing we are watching the cricket match and our favorite batsman gets out and everybody in the crowd is angry, right? So I'm giving myself the sanskar, I'm giving myself the pattern of anger. And that pattern of anger within me, the sanskar of anger, is getting reinforced. It is getting more powerful. But in the crowd, we have to understand something. It is one into as many in the crowd. So if I get angry on him and the intensity of that is one, but supposing 20,000 people are watching the match, then that anger is simultaneously done by 20,000 people. And so at that anger does not have an intensity of one which goes inside into my subconscious mind. It is one into 20,000. And that is why we have to be very, very careful in crowd culture, right? When people go for demonstrations, when people take out circuses, it's very, very important. And one thing, if we see that they are all aggressive people, they're shouting and screaming, they're in a state of aggressiveness, throwing out violence and aggressiveness all the time. It is increasing the general pool of aggressiveness. If, on the other hand, uh, they wanted to really demonstrate, if they could all sit silently in meditation, then that would have more power than the demonstration. And one of the things which the Indian Shastra talks about is what is called is the 1% effect. And if there is a town of 100 people living, 100 people living in this town, and one person's monkey becomes quiet, he enters into a state of silence, he's free of negative emotions, then that one person affects the other 99. Then in that town of 100 people, crime will be less, what do you call, the aggressiveness of people will be less. Not only that, many things will change. There is a beautiful story about this, that in ancient India, in one town, the what do you call, the custom was that if the king dies, then there was a special elephant, and the elephant is given a garland, and the elephant goes around the town, and whomever the elephant throws the garland upon, that person becomes the next king. So here in this town, the king died. The elephant was given the garland. He went around the town, right? Didn't see anybody. So then he went to the gates of the town. And outside the gates, one, what do you call, sannyasi was walking along the road, and he threw the garland upon the sannyasi. The sannyasi tried to run away, but the people of the town caught him and said, the elephant has chosen you. You are the next king. You have to accept it. And they carried him and put him on the throne. So he said, okay, you do one thing, you manage the. He went into a room, and he didn't come out of that room for 7 years. In that 7 years, the country flourished. Rains came on time. People were very happy. There was no crime. The crops were overflowing, and people were prosperous. Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, prosperous, prosperity. And what do you call, the country was so rich, the town was so rich, that the king of the neighboring state, he got jealous. And he said that I must conquer this small kingdom, right? There the rains come on time. In my kingdom, the rains don't come on time. There the crop is so beautiful, good, it yields so much. In my kingdom, it does not. So he took his army and he came to the border of the kingdom. The ministers were upset. They knocked on the door and told the sannyasi that you've been sitting in that room for 7 years. You please come out. The neighboring kingdom has brought his, what do you call, army, and they're standing on the border. So he came out and he said, do one thing, tell that king to come and meet me. So in those days, if a sannyasi calls, then of course the king comes to meet. So the king came to meet him. And he says, you want this kingdom? I never wanted it in the first place. You please take it. I'm going, right? And he started walking on his way. And at that moment, the king realized that this prosperity was because of this person sitting silently in the room, sitting in the room doing nothing. It was his vibrational tone, the waves which he was sending from his mind, the mind which was totally crystal clear and pure, that brought this prosperity to this small kingdom. So he ran behind the sannyasi. He fell at his feet. He says, you please do one thing. You keep your kingdom, but take my kingdom also. Right? So when there is purification in the heart, when there's purification of emotions, when the emotional center gets purified, the very vibrational tone creates a different atmosphere, a different aura around wherever we live. So again, we go back to the Jack of Hearts. And what I was just talking about crowd culture and what is the 1% effect. These people who live in the Jack of Hearts and spend their lives in the Jack of Hearts are generally very friendly, peaceful, and one of their what do you call characteristics is that they love to talk a lot. They are warm and they look after other people. And one thing, because everything is mechanical, you go and see their homes. Everything is arranged properly in their homes. But like I said, emotions swing, and if they suddenly become suspicious of the other person, then their emotions will swing from affection to hate. Another characteristic of them is that they remember people's birthdays very easily. They love to send people greeting cards, thank you notes, get well cards, condolence messages. And they talk mechanically and are generally cheerful people. They have a kind of intelligence for what clothes to wear for which occasion. But beneath all this, they're still in the mechanical part of the emotional center. And it's a very shallow way of living. It's a very shallow part of life. And as we have seen, the Jacks work without attention, in zero attention. They love to copy the latest fashions. And one of the things they don't realize is how much of harm they are causing by talking all the time, because they love to talk. And they enjoy gossip. They love gossip. They love sensational stories, right? When they judge other people, their judgments are very ordinary, formatory judgments. They cannot look into the depth of something. So it'll be more moralistic judgments where they'll have. They love sentimental movies, love songs, artificial flowers, repeating lines from movies, serials, and greeting cards. One of the characteristics of the male of this Jack, who is centered in the Jack of Hearts, is he loves to tell jokes, and he has a whole what you call library, because it is the memory. He has a whole library of jokes. When they go for sports or something, they will wear the T-shirt or the color of the team they support, and they enjoy sports. But if the negative side is active in someone, they can be very mean, very petty, take revenge, spiteful, jealous, and even vindicative. And they have a knack of insulting people. They have a knack of insulting people. They disguise their insults in a kind of sarcastic manner. And by using humor, they insult people. We won't be this time taking the Jack of Diamonds. One suit is going to be remaining. So, but The Jack of Diamonds learns from education, from outside. The Jack of Heart learns from family, society, and situations. Now, if the negative side becomes very powerful, then these people are dry people, they're devoid of emotions, and sometimes they can be very brutal. And this happens when in their young days they are neglected a lot. All schools, they are concerned with the intellectual center. No school teaches how to transform the emotional center. And many times when the vanity of education comes in, the people who are in jacks with their education, with their degrees, they become rude, indifferent, violent. But we now will go to the Queen in some time. The negativity of the Jack of Hearts is nothing compared to the Queen. And we saw all the Queens swing to the extremes of the pendulum. And the Queen is the most explosive card in the mind, right? The most explosive card. Now, one of the emotions over here is self-pity, which lies in the Jack. And of all the negative emotions, it is the lowest form of emotion. And we indulge a lot in self-pity. And we must work against self-pity. Supposing when he was ill, I helped him a lot. And then I fall ill and he does not even phone me, then I will say, see, when he was ill, I helped him a lot. When I was ill, he didn't even bother to phone me, right? Self-pity. Can you see? Mari daya ukhaun. And this is the terrible state to be in. Terrible state to be in. Another form is of self-pity is that he has hurt me and I won't go to his home unless he says sorry, right? So I'm not going to talk to him. I'm not going to, go to his home. And sometimes it can happen, he has a marriage and I'll say, I won't attend the marriage till you come and say sorry, right? And this very idea that somebody should say sorry to us. Can you see it's one of the lowest ideas possible. The lowest ideas possible. And this is the depth of self-pity, right? And we must work against that. And it is the height of vanity, as if I am something, somebody should come and fall at my feet and say sorry to me. It's a very, very, negative idea. Now, why I wanted to talk a little about self-pity. Emotions come to the head. If he hurts me, the emotion can come to the head, then I don't feel it so much. I can shake it off. But if he hurts me and it can go to the heart, then I'm holding on to it. And I can, from that, the thought of revenge, the idea of revenge, giving it back to him can come. Self-pity is the only emotion which goes to the soul. It goes further, it goes to the soul. And the inner Atma, the inner spirit, is like a diamond. Say if you gather 50 Kohinoor diamonds together. So you say the spirit is like a diamond, and the spirit is protected by a translucent body, not transparent, but translucent body. So that translucent body which protects the spirit is called as the causal body or Karan Sharir. Now the light of the spirit comes out of that translucent body, and the light of that spirit we call as soul. We call it as the soul. Now, when we hold on to self-pity for very long periods of time, it becomes very, very powerful. And it reaches this translucent body, the outer covering of the Atma, the spirit, and it makes a scratch over there. Once it makes a scratch over there, our negativity, the power of our negativity is increased 1,000 times, or even much, much more than that, 30,000 times. And these people who have a scratch over there, in life, they become very, very powerful people, right? And they could be mass murderers like Genghis Khan, Alexander, right? Hitler. Uh, and uh, and they have no, what do you call, they have no feeling about killing anyone. It doesn't make any, so powerful they become. I give you a small example. This is quite some years ago. Someone had come to meet me, and then he suddenly started, he went into self-pity. I was trying to tell him this, wait, but he wouldn't listen. And he says, my parents never looked after me. My father never gave me a proper education. My father is this, my father is that. And at that moment, he got a call from someone in his family that his father had died. Can you see the effect of self-pity? Effect of self-pity. So self-pity is one emotion we must work. It is the lowest form of negativity. It's the worst form of negativity. We must work against that, because once that scratch is formed in the causal body, it will take many lifetimes to heal that scratch. These people enjoy shopping, enjoy perfumes. If somebody gives them a soft touch, they enjoy the touch a lot. They love the frightening amusement like roller coasters. And they're pretty possessive people, especially in the female. There is a possessiveness about the male. Their emotions are conditioned by books, movies, right? I'm talking about many years ago when my daughter was young. Now she's 22. And I was going to South Africa for the first time. So I said, would you like something from South Africa? She was saying, bring me those new short skirts. So I said, you better tell me what you mean by short, right? My idea of short and your idea of short. So she says the one which Priyanka Chopra wears. So I said, I have not seen Priyanka Chopra or any movie of hers, so you'll have to be more specific about this. So she said, you bring this kind of. So can you see, they love to copy from the movies, right? What others are wearing, what fashion is going on. And when they go into religion, they go into blind rituals. Instead of going into the esoteric, the mystic side of any religion, they just follow the blind rituals of religion. Because they are quite insensitive people in a certain way, they think of I all the time, they can be pretty good businessmen, these people. Now again, we saw that the Jack has 3 cards in it, 2, 3, and 4. So 2 being the lowest, very shallow relationships, has a good memory of phones and people, loves to laugh at other people, indulges in very cheap humor, loves to welcome people to their home, and a mechanical, automatic expression of emotions. In the 3, we see sudden attraction of emotions, sudden attraction of attention. And a 3 person is quite easy. If he's standing far away and some people are talking somewhere in a corner, and you can't make out what they're talking, but if someone takes his name, his ear will go immediately there and he'll know that they're talking about me. Now, the Jack of Hearts, the three, these are people who love to talk for hours on the phone. They love the news in the newspapers. And when they arrange their home, it is clean. And they love to send songs to each other on WhatsApp. And they can be pretty jealous people. Now, in the four, there is a possessiveness about objects. This is my pen. This is my book. It is the beginning of self-love over here. And these people, they also love talking, but there is a little common sense in their talking. We go to the Queen of Hearts. Like I said, this is the most explosive card in the whole deck. And it can be a source of very harmful, violent manifestations, right? And most of our identification with people comes from here, right? Where we are identified with people. Why aren't you paying attention to me? You should pay attention to me. So the Queen demands other people's. Now, from the Queen, we'll go to King. And there are two small lines which we can understand the difference between the Queen and King. The Queen wants love, the King gives love, right? So this is the key line of the Queen of Hearts. She's always looking for attention. She's always looking for love. These are people who are very concerned about what other people talk about them, what other people think about them, what other people talk about them, what other people are gossiping about them. And they're very concerned with that. And if somebody comes and tells them, they're very suggestible people, that this person was talking to about you like this, then they get hypnotized by that suggestibility. And they judge people very easily. Now we have to be very careful of this inner attitude of judging others. One of my guru's statements was, never talk about another person unless that person is present to hear it. Right? So if that person is present to hear it and he can defend himself, then talk about him. But the minute we are talking about another person and that person is not present, we are judging that person. And we can only judge from what we are. We can only judge from our level of being, right? There is no way we can know the other apart from our level of being. And when we make a judgment about, we are always on one side of the pendulum. We're always stuck on one side of the pendulum. We are hypnotized by that side of the pendulum. We are identified with life. So they judge people and they criticize people very easily. They are very, very interested in what others do. So the Queen of Hearts will come and it will tell the husband or the wife, do you know the neighbor's wife was doing this and that was doing that? So they're very interested in what other people are doing. They're very interested in other people's personal lives. And they're very interested in what sexual relationships other people have. They are very concerned with morality, what is right and what is wrong. And see, in the Mahabharata, there's a beautiful story about morality. Yudhishthir is a very moral person. He never speaks a lie. He never speaks a lie. And Krishna lived moment to moment. What was necessary in this moment, he would do. But if in the next moment something opposite was necessary, he would do that. So he would sense the necessity of the moment. Now, I don't speak lies is also a kind of ego. It is also a kind of vanity. I don't lie. And In spirituality, there is no what you call lying and not lying in that sense, in the moral sense. In spirituality, there is rise in consciousness, there is fall in consciousness. Rise in consciousness is called Sat. Fall in consciousness is called Asat. Now, sometimes to rise in consciousness, you have to lie, right? So Krishna knew Yudhishthir had this ego of lying, and he wanted to break that ego, and he says, you will have to lie that Ashwathama died. Can you see? So even lie, what do you call, even I speak the truth can be asat. It can be morally right, but as far as spirituality, it just expands the ego, increases the ego. So it is, you fall into asat. Now, when we get moral thoughts of punishing people who are not moral, these thoughts come from the Queen of Hearts. And that is one thing we can observe within ourselves, that look, the Queen of Hearts has shown her face. Supposing I'm watching TV and on TV it comes that this minister did so much of corruption. And immediately my Queen of Hearts will become very aggressive. He should be punished. This should happen to him, right? Etc. And don't bother about the minister. Look at your Queen of Hearts inside. Be free of her at that time. They can become excellent reporters because they love to go into other people's lives, and they become experts at uncovering scandals, right? They can open the private lives of anyone to public scrutiny. And we love it when we watch it on TV. We get this negative rush, we get this negative enjoyment when we watch these scandals on TV. Something must always hold their attention. They can't have free attention. Something must always hold their attention, whether it is film stars, whether it is politicians, whether it is athletes, the TV, magazines. And all these magazines and TV and advertising, and all of them are doing good business because of the Queen of Hearts. Right? And if they get free, there's nothing to hold their attention. They can be very destructive people. They love to read romantic novels. And when they read romantic novels, they have these imaginary dreams of the hero or the heroine in the novel, and they think about it and they create their own imagination about it. Because of their deep identification, they are always comparing with themselves with other people. They are comparing one person with another person. And we had said all our thoughts are, one of the ingredients in every thought is comparison. We cannot make a thought without comparing. When we shift from lower thinking to higher thinking, then it is relative thinking. It is not through comparison, but this requires years and years of practice. They keep comparing their son, their husbands, their wives with each other. So somebody compare his wife with somebody else's wife, or his son with somebody else's son. She'll compare her husband with somebody else's. And he'll tell, yeah, he's doing this. How come you're doing this? And it's a typical Queen of Hearts, right? That one son studies 20 hours in the day, you're studying 1 hour in the day, etc. When in extremes, these are the parents which hit their children, are violent with their children. Could be even wife beating comes under the Queen of Hearts. But the positive side of this is that it can lead them to the King of Hearts. It can lead them from lower emotions into higher emotions. The positive side is makes them religious, charitable. Now, in all of us, we had talked about something called vivek, conscience, the ability to see what is happening in the other within ourselves and within ourselves in the other, to be able to see two together, right? And we took different examples of this. I said, I love a girl because she's very good to me, but if I can see in her unconscious mind, conscious mind, then I can see this love depends on hate. After a few months of marriage, the hate will come out and the love will go in. And if we can see this in the beginning, then we never get upset about it. We never get disturbed about it. So the ability to see two in life, the ability to see the duality of life is called Vivek. But because these Queen of Hearts are always stuck on some extreme in life, their attention is always attracted attention. They don't allow this inner Vivek to grow, right? But once they understand that they want to move higher into the King of Hearts, then it opens this inner conscience. And this gives us the ability to see both sides of life together. This is the beginning of the perception of truth, real truth. But again, like we said, all queens swing. So today they can be deeply devoted to someone, and next moment it swings to the opposite direction. They hate the same person. They're very identified with what is just and what is unjust, right? And this chattering monkey of ours is always saying this is just and this is unjust, right? If you sit in a restaurant and you've come before some other table, but the waiter serves that table before the waiter serves you, so you'll immediately, the monkey will say this is not justice, right? It's saying this is not justice. And we have these deep ideas in life, what is unjust and what is just. uh, I remember in so many family quarrels we go through, and there they say everything must be divided 50-50, as if there's a justice is a, what do you call, something which is black and white. And we don't understand that this identification with justice, right, can never allow us to move higher into what is truth. Justice is a morality, right? So we have to understand, and once we move into the higher, we realize that the higher intelligence, that the God's intelligence can be nothing but just. And it's very difficult to what you call to accept this, because what has happened in this moment, his intelligence is behind it, and it cannot be anything but justice. Very difficult to understand this and accept this. But there is only one door to the divine, and that is acceptance. Unless we accept the fact, what is in front of the five senses, we cannot make the, what do you call, journey from fact to truth. They have profound mood changes. And sometimes we cannot explain people's moods. They become very difficult to explain. You know, you go to a hill station where everything is so beautiful and nice, and and then one person in your group or in the family says, I don't want to come out today, my mood is not good, right? So these people, they identify with their mood so much, and they don't relate the mood to what is happening out. Wife will say, I'm very sorry, I won't do it again. And this goes on, this game of doing it and apologizing, doing it and apologizing, and we can't see it as a whole. So they promise something, 10 hours a day, he promises, and then in 2 days the promise is broken, and this goes on. But this is because they are always living in extremes of life. Real perception, real consciousness is always in the middle. And when nothing is holding their attention, they become self-destructive. They can become destructive of others. They become self-destructive. The prime example of this is the artist Van Gogh. And Van Gogh would, when nothing would hold his attention, he had nothing to do, he would injure his own self. And one day his girlfriend told him that, I love your beautiful ears. And he took a knife, cut off his 2 ears and gave it as a present to his girlfriend. So they are very self-destructive people. So if by chance you marry a queen of hearts, it's going to be a love-hate relationship, right? Swinging from one extreme to another extreme. One day they'll be intense in their love, next day they'll be intense in their hate. Sometimes they are so mechanical in their business, this intensity, that in one stroke, just because of moving to one extreme in the pendulum, denouncing something, saying no to something, they can lose a month's profit or something. And this is the one card which takes pleasure in harming someone, right? Now here we have to see when we laugh. Are we laughing at somebody else's expense? Can you see? I'm making fun of him, right? Now, you can make positive fun of someone, but I'm making negative fun of someone. Have you seen the way he walks, right? So when we are laughing at somebody else's expense, it is the very negative side of the Queen of Hearts. And we do love to laugh at other people's expense. We say that you hate this person so much. Why not? Immediately the Queen of Hearts will say yes. Suggestibility being one of their traits. And that person's name goes out of the list of hate. They are now looking for somebody else to put in the list of hate, right? And they'll find somebody else, right? Either in their friends, relatives, neighbors, very easily they'll find somebody else to put in the same list. Now, people who have a very weak will, they are very easily attracted to the intensity of these people because they always are in extremes and they live very intense lives, right? And when they are interested in a subject, they'll go into the subject, and when they get bored of it, they'll throw it away and go somewhere else. So these are very intense people, and sometimes the magnetism of somebody who is very intense can attract a person who is weak-willed, and he follows that. So they swing from the heights of love to the heights of arrogance to depths of pity and depression. Because they are so intense and because it is emotional energy, and when we are with them, when they are so intense, we feel we are absorbing that emotional energy, and that is why we feel nice with them, we feel good with them. But if they swing to the other end, then again we'll run away from them. But so because the queen cannot always radiate positive energy. The queen is a beautiful card to develop, but the queen must be controlled by the king. And unless we awaken the king of hearts within us and use the king of hearts to control and stabilize the intensity of the queen of hearts, the queen of hearts will lead to a life of extremes, swinging from one end of the pendulum to the other. When these people fall in love, they will do the most stupid things when they are in love, right? They may wait at the bus stop for their girlfriend for hours on hours, right? They can do any stupid thing in their love. Now, supposing somebody they love says you're too fat, they will immediately go on a diet. So intense will be their diet. Within a few months, they lose all their pounds. They will. Somebody they love says, what are you doing with your time? They'll go learn dancing and do all kinds of things. And for the person they love, they are willing to fight with others for the person they love. This is the same negative energy which makes terrorists, same negative energy which hijacks planes, takes hostages, because they are always in an extreme. These people may forgive you, but they will never forget what you have done. So if we can break our identification with life, if we can break our hypnosis with life and use this card creatively, then we can really bring great enjoyment and intensity in our lives. The minute it decides something is just and unjust, we should allow the king to take over. Otherwise, they'll go into some extreme. Now, another thing here is the changing desires. Changing desires. So when they have one desire in life, they will pursue that desire with intensity. And then a moment will come, that desire drops away and a new desire comes. And they're pursuing that desire with intensity. One of the characters in the Mahabharata is Ashwathama. And beautiful name, Ashwa. Shwa means time. Ashwa means not time. So Shwa means the what you call linear time, that is tomorrow. Ashwa means not tomorrow. Right? Thama means that which is stable, just स्थायी है. That which is stable, just स्थायी है. Right? So the desire I have today, I do not have tomorrow. By then the desire has changed, right? Especially if I'm the queen of hearts, the desire has changed tomorrow. But I'm always desiring something that is stable. That is stable, right? And Ashwathama is a Chiranjeevi, the person who cannot die. And desire cannot be killed. Desire, through rising in consciousness, we can make it powerless. That is, we observe our desires and we separate from them. We don't allow ourselves to be hypnotized by our desires. So we see towards the end of the Mahabharata, Krishna takes the power out of Ashwathama by taking the what you call gemstone from his forehead. And so then desire roams around the world, but desire becomes powerless. So nobody can be free from desire. It is not possible to be free from desire, but we rise to a state of consciousness where desire is powerless to influence us. So desire comes and we look at it and we don't allow it to come in our home. It passes our home from the side and goes along like all passers-by. When these people are negative, they can have very extreme language. That is, they can say things that really penetrate and hurt us and go deep within us. Now, in extremities, this is the card which worries all the time. And worry is something like desire. right? If I'm worried why my daughter has not come home and my daughter comes home after 5 minutes, then I'm looking for something else to worry about, right? And one worry leads to another. Worry comes from the Latin root, which means to wring. You know, when you wash your clothes and then you wring your clothes to uh, what do you call, take the water out of the clothes. So when we worry, we what do you call, wring ourselves of all the beautiful energies the body has. We throw it outside, right? And that is one of the invitations of disease, worry. We talked about pictures and how our ego is an album of pictures. All the pictures are formed by the Queen of Hearts, right? She pictures of how good I am, what a good father I am, what a good employer I am, what a generous person I am, how unselfish I am, etc., etc. We talked about the feeling of I, and a lot of the imaginary part of the feeling of I comes from the Queen of Hearts. Now again here, 5. The 5 is very possessive about feel bad, right? And similarly about family. And they don't like people's attention going elsewhere. The friends and family must give them attention, must phone them, must talk to them, etc. So in 5, we see there is possessiveness. In 6, we say the queen being emotional, the emotional part of the queen. And this is where the love-hate relationships are in their extreme emotions. Here we see in extreme love for country, love for religion, blind love, passionate emotions, can sacrifice for love, leave everything for love, is willing to kill or get killed for love. And you know, when we study the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali's, uh, uh, the deepest seed of karma is fear of death. And that leads to many other fears, but the basic fear is that fear in all of us that any time this machine of ours will stop functioning. This machine of ours stop functioning, right? And that fear lies in all of us. And sometimes that fear comes out, right? Somebody is driving rashly, the fear comes out. Uh, we go and meet a friend who is ill, immediately there's some monkey in us telling us that he is ill is okay, I should not fall ill, you see. And there is that, what do you call, inner this thing where we have this in constant fear that something will happen to this machine, whether we are walking on the road, whatever we are doing. If we forget it, it's still lying in the subconscious mind. Now, there is only one emotion which can overpower this at certain times, and that is rag dvesh, what they call. So if I take the fear of death as the most intense negative emotion, not the lowest, but the intense one, and I say that I'm in love with this girl, and if I don't get this girl to sing another person, overtakes the fear, what do you call, fear of death, right? Or I hate someone so much, dvesh, I hate somebody so much, and just to show him, to prove a point, I may kill myself, right? So at these times it overcomes that. But normally we would say that the fear of death is something which hangs in the background of our mind all the time. So When it is country, we get over it. And so these are these extremes in which we get over it. Now, 7 is the intellectual part, and these people have a very sharp eye to see other people's weaknesses, and they can make a joke out of it. And I don't know if you've what do you call seen any laughter programs on TV, but these what do you call laughter artists, they have a knack of seeing people's weaknesses and bringing it out on TV, that the whole crowd is laughing and all of that. And this is other observation. In spirituality, you need inner observation, self-observation, not other observation. Somebody may be a very, very powerful in other observation. In self-observation, he may be zero, right? So it's a different thing. And they make use of other people's weaknesses to tease other people, to make fun of them, to joke about them. These people, to get their work done, can cry also for it if they want to get their work done. As we said, all impressions are labeled here like or dislike. So one of the inner work which we do on ourselves is to separate this card from making judgments anywhere, making judgments anywhere. And this is hard work because we automatically judge people, we automatically criticize people. Now I'll come to the final card we are going to talk about today, the King of Hearts. Now, the most important difference between the Queen of Hearts and the King of Hearts is, in the Queen of Hearts, love is visible, and in the King of Hearts, love is nearly invisible. So if a husband is the King of Hearts, right, and the wife is the Queen of Hearts, she'll keep on telling him that you're not expressing any love for me, you're not showing any love for me, but she cannot understand that he has a higher form of love which she cannot see. It is a silent form of love which she cannot see. The Queen of Hearts is very demonstrative about her love. She'll call her husband or wife darling this, darling that, right? And my love this, my love that, right? Very demonstrative about the love. The King of Hearts never demonstrates love. એટલે આપણા ઇમોશન્સનું પ્રદર્શન કરવું, what we call in Gujarati. I don't know what to say in Hindi, but Gujarati. These are silent emotions, and there is no imagination attached to these emotions. There's acceptance of the reality, the fact of life. Because we said all understanding has a tinge of love with it. All understanding comes from the heart. This is the place where we understand something, and especially understand the higher part of life, the aesthetic part of life. So one question we should ask ourselves every night before we go to sleep: today, have I made an effort to understand something new today? And if I've not understood something new today, I've really wasted the whole day, right? And that understanding slowly will lead to the awakening of this very, very beautiful card called the King of Hearts. It's lying sleeping in all of us, and we have to make that effort to awaken it. Of all the cards in the deck, this is the most beautiful, the most interesting card, and has many higher properties. And the chief among them is a high and pure understanding of life. They see right and wrong not as morality but as relativity. And this is very difficult. I'll just give you an example. One of the exercises which my guru had made me do was to see things in scale, see things in scale. So I'll say this person insulted me, he talks very badly to me, he doesn't treat me well, etc. So I'm now looking at him, a certain part of him, right? Now, when I get such thoughts, I have to expand the scale. So I say, in his whole scale of life, where does this sit? Where does this stand? So I'll say, oh, he's an excellent husband. He looks after his wife properly. He performs his duties of life properly, right? He's very good in his work. So I'll say, in all the scale of that, can you see where does this insult of mine lie, right? And suddenly it has no meaning, right? It has no meaning because in that scale I see he's a very beautiful person, a very nice person. Maybe sometimes he has just insulted me. So we had to, what do you call, whenever we judge people, criticize people, we had to do it in scale. And when we see things scale, then we are thinking in relativity, not comparing. Our thoughts are comparison thoughts, right? And when we think in scale, then we are going beyond lower thinking into thinking with relativity. See, if everything that is happening has some higher purpose, is the higher intelligence is aware of it, then in that scale of the whole, it performs a certain function. And the ability to see that scale, the ability to open our eyes to that scale. This card has a wonderful sense of discrimination, what we call vivek, conscience. What is right and what is wrong in terms of consciousness, not in terms of morality. But sad to say, very few people are able to awaken this card in their lives. This card does not come automatically. Nobody's centered in this card. It takes hard work to awaken this card. It needs deep study of the properties, first of the queen, and how to rise from the queen, rise from judgment, rise from criticism, rise from swinging in extremes, right? So it takes a deep study of each of these properties and how to be free of them to move into the king. And that is to observe the emotional center, to see our emotions like I see furniture. The furniture is separate from me. When I'm observing something, it is separate from me. And the ability to come to a state of consciousness where we can observe our emotions. All judgments come from the ego. All judgments come from self-love. All judgments come from our vanity. And we very easily judge the positive and negative aspects of someone. It is in this card that forgiveness comes, right? And we had talked about forgiveness, that forgiveness is an inner light. You have to awaken that light. You cannot forgive one person and not forgive another person. You'll rise to a state of forgiveness where you're able to forgive whoever comes to you. This is the card which understands, shares, and can totally become one with other people's feelings. It has a deep, what you call, power of self-control, restraint, and tolerance. One of my gurus was Swami Ram Dulare, and I had the great fortune of spending 7 years with him. And once somebody asked him, "Ke adhyatma etle su, what is spirituality?" And he said, "Pratiksha and titiksha." The power of waiting, the power of patience, pratiksha, and the power of enduring, titiksha, the power of endurance, titiksha. And like we take a thermometer and we measure somebody's temperature. What is the barometer of our spiritual progress? Have we really progressed on the path? And there is only one barometer. Has our power of endurance increased? If he's negative, more negative, more negative with me, keeps on showering negativity upon me, and I keep on holding the power of endurance, that is the only barometer of spirituality. Right? And one of the beautiful slokas in the Gita is where uh, Krishna is telling Arjun, Matra sparshastu kaunteya. That which is coming through the five senses is not a person, it is not an object. I'm not looking at him. What is coming in, he is broken down into electromagnetic impulses. Those electromagnetic impulses are coming through my five sense organs. These electromagnetic impulses in Shastra is called as tanmatra. Right? So it is matra sparshastu kaunteya. Hey kaunteya, Arjun, what is coming in through the five senses is electromagnetic impulses. Even if he has insulted you, that insult is broken down into electromagnetic impulses and it comes in, right? And he says these can be hot, cold, right? They could be of any kind. And then he says, Tan titikshasva bharata. Develop your power of endurance. Develop your power of endurance. And that is the only barrier. If he says something and I react immediately, with all my knowledge, I have not even walked one step on the path. Not one. Okay? So the king has a supreme power of endurance, the king of hearts. But the queen of hearts always thinks of I. The king of hearts thinks of the other. I'm going to repeat something which I said on the first day. Some new people are here. One of the exercises which my guru gave me was not to take anything personally for 6 months. And it so happened that he gave me the exercise today, and the next day my wife phoned and she says, you come over for a few days. My young son was only 8-9 months old and he has a high fever and all that. So next day I went to him. I said, my wife has called and son is ill and she's saying you come over for a few days. So I'll leave Mumbai for a few days, go meet her and come back. So he's saying, whose son are you talking about? So I said, my son. So he says, I told you not to take anything personally. Whose son are you talking about? Right? And then it suddenly dawned on me what this exercise was about. Right? Somebody parks in your parkway. Why have you parked in front of my car? But don't take anything personally. There's nothing like my car. How can my friend come to your house for dinner without letting me know? But there is nothing like my friend. There is friendship, but there's nothing like my friend, because don't take anything personally, right? You have taken my book and not returned it, right? But there is nothing like my book, because don't take anything personally. And it's such a powerful exercise. If we can do this exercise for 6 months, we are free of the I. That's it. The most biggest operation is done within us. Right? Just to, if we can practice this exercise for 6 months. Compassion. The king has the attitude of compassion, right? So in real humility, not shown humility. Many times you go for religious gatherings, and in the front row, there are all people wearing a shawl with Ram Ram written on it, right? So this is what you call pradarshan of humility. What do you call displaying my humility? But the king, that is the queen of hearts sits in the first row. But it is the king which silent humility, real humility. So we have 3 points here. The first is the separation from the queen. The second, he wants to give love, not take love, right? And he has a very high power of endurance. All negative emotions lead to mood swings. But once you're in the King of Hearts, your moods are in your control. Now, this is something very different. Can we bring the right attitude to each moment of life? And this is when each moment we are living consciously, we bring the right attitude to that moment in life, right? Supposing it is my daughter's birthday and I've invited so many friends, etc. And then it rains very heavily, nobody can come. Can I bring the right attitude to that moment in life? So the mechanical attitude, I'll be unhappy. Oh, how has this happened? Immediately I transform it into the right attitude. And and this is a conscious action which we can invest in each moment of life. Now, again here, the Queen of Hearts wants to be understood. The King of Hearts wants to understand. Now, you take a normal husband and wife relationship, right? The wife always feels the husband does not understand me, and the husband always feels that the wife does not understand me, and this goes on. Tu mane samjhi જ નથી શકતી, right? And it goes on, right? And this is a typical attitude of the Queen of Hearts. But here we make the effort, external considering, to understand the other, right? We rise above the Queen. We may demand understanding from somebody else. So that thought comes, we look at that thought, and then we make the external effort to understand the other person, right? And only when we understand the other can it lead to real sympathy, real compassion in life, right? As long as I am compassionate, it's not possible. The I can never be compassionate. The I can never forgive. The I can never love. The other part, like we talked about, is seeing what we see in the other within ourselves. And we said that there are 101 eternal characters. They are the characters of the Mahabharata, and they are in everyone. They are in everyone. So when he is getting angry on me, it is Dushasan getting angry on me. And when I look inside, I see Dushasan within myself. It just cancels out. There's no, what you call, reaction to his anger, no reaction to his insult, right? And that is why the Mahabharata is a supreme Shastra. Now, the higher part is appreciation of beauty. And it can appreciate the mystic beauty of life, the esoteric beauty of life, not the superficial beauty of life. And it enjoys that. And when it is with friends, the King of Hearts, it enjoys being with friends, but is never a slave to the friends, never allows what the friends say, the gossip, to be suggestible. Now, there are 3 stages to our spiritual development. The first is an attraction to some form of teaching, right? And that happens through the intellectual center, even though attraction is a part of the emotional center. Then understanding that form of teaching where the emotional comes in. Then the intellectual and emotional bring the moving center where we practice that form of teaching. So it goes through 3 stages, right? And one of the qualities of understanding any teaching is the absence of aggressiveness. If there is aggressiveness about any teaching, I have not understood. If I say I am right and what you say is wrong, right, or what I follow is right and what you follow is wrong, I have not understood what I follow also, right? Can you understand, right? There's just an intellectual understanding of it. But when I go deeper into it and I start living it, when I start living it, then I realize that being right is a multi-dimensional thing. From this angle, somebody can be right, somebody from this angle can be right, somebody from this angle can be right, and then comes an acceptance that all these can be right together. And that acceptance, that expansion of consciousness, that transformation of understanding comes. And sometimes when the queen goes into deep negativity, she comes to a state where she says that nobody in life understands me, right? And this is a way we have again moved into the lowest negative emotion, self-pity, self-pity. The king has a, what you call, sensitivity to higher knowledge, a deep sensitivity to higher knowledge. And they may just see a statue in the temple, but suddenly they'll, from one statue, they'll extract so much of knowledge in different angles in which the statue is saying what. And especially when you see ancient statues in the old temples and what classical forms of art, things like that. It is able to extract higher meaning from artifacts of life. The queen shows a great concern for other people. She'll show how concerned she is about her friends. She'll telephone them, are you getting better? Are you getting this? King has a concern for others, but he never shows that concern. It's always a silent concern, but it is more genuine. Now, when we work with these two cards, the queen and the king, many times we'll awaken a property of the king, but again we'll fall back into the queen. We realize, and maybe for some time we'll pause judging other people, and then sometimes we'll fall back and realize, oh, I've been judging somebody for, right? And this movement will go on, this what do you call, this journey from queen to king and king falling back to queen, till we come to a state where our center of gravity is now properly in the king. Now, there are three forms of suffering in life. One is involuntary suffering. And that is, suffering comes in my life, but I don't want that suffering, right? And most of us are hypnotized by involuntary suffering, right? If two people bring their horoscopes to me, that see, match them, that no suffering should come in their life, right? So people run away from suffering. They don't want suffering in life. Then there is the transformation of lower suffering into a little higher suffering. It's called voluntary suffering, right? So you see, you have to stand in a line for 2 hours. Now there can be complaining, there can be finding fault with others, there can be, then I'm in the lower form of suffering, it's involuntary. But I say, no, I will awaken the king, I will awaken the power of patience, I will awaken the power of endurance. Then I'm using I've transformed the suffering from involuntary suffering to what you call voluntary suffering. And this has to be practiced every moment in life, in all the incidents in life, right? Because we get involuntary suffering from all kinds of places, and the characteristic of that, we react to the suffering, right? And here we understand the suffering and we use the suffering for a higher purpose. Now, I want to just talk a little about suffering, then we'll go back. I'm losing time over here. I, uh, whatever we do in suffering is fixed within us. Now, supposing I get a fever and there's a lot of body ache and etc., etc., and I start complaining about it. Oh, I had to go for a journey or a tour somewhere or a holiday somewhere. Now I got this fever. I have to cancel everything. Then the sanskar of complaining, the pattern of complaining becomes very powerful. Now, in the fever, if I practice meditation, if I practice endurance and I practice patience, then the new habit of patience, the new sanskar of patience, the new, what do you call, sanskar of endurance becomes more powerful. So whatever we do when we are suffering, that can be fixed permanently within us. And one of the highest examples of this is Jesus Christ. I mean, they say Judas betrayed him for 30 pieces of silver. Anybody who has really lived a guru-disciple relationship knows that a disciple cannot betray the guru, right? The night before, Jesus must have whispered into Judas's ear, "You please betray me," so that they catch me and they, what do you call, crucify me on the cross. And in that cross, the intense suffering, we can imagine the suffering he went through, that intense suffering, that final height of consciousness which was in him became permanent. And for one moment we see that he slipped a little lower, because that suffering was so great, and he was about to complain. We don't say he complained. He said, "My Father, have you forsaken me?" That one moment of complaining, and then he says, "Let thy will be done." Can you see this? And so in our life, we can at least make all the involuntary suffering voluntary. And this is a very powerful spiritual practice. Later on, we can go to conscious suffering. Conscious suffering is something totally different, right? And it is the suffering which holds the present moment, the suffering which uh, uh, allows us to be in the present moment. So these people, they learn to, all their suffering has become voluntary when you're in the King of Hearts. There is no involuntary suffering. Please understand that life can at times be very, very cruel. Some things can happen in life which are so cruel, and it takes real inner courage to make that involuntary suffering voluntary. Now, when we are in the Queen, we could take an example. It's not a perfect example, but just an example. We live in extremes. So we may be attracted to a very extreme form of music like disco music, or that kind of music. But as the the king awakens within us, we'll see that our taste in music starts changing. That does not mean we stop liking disco music, but we now awaken to higher forms of music, right? Higher forms of it, right? That is one characteristic, that we are transforming from the queen to the king. When the queen decorates her house, everything will be beautiful and nicely put. When the king decorates his house, it will be according to the deeper spiritual laws of life, right? We'll take one small example. One of the basic Hindu symbols is the swastika. The basic Hindu symbols is swastika. So this is a moving symbol. Yeah, that one. Okay. Now, swastik is the movement of energy which brings prosperity. And again, like I said in the morning, don't confuse prosperity only with money, only with money, right? So, of course, money being a part of it, right? So when they arrange their house, they will try to arrange things according to some deeper law, some deeper spiritual symbol and all. Now, I'll give a small example. My time is getting over. Please sit for 5-10 minutes more, or just 5-10 minutes more, right? Uh, if you go to Agra and you see the Taj Mahal, and many people see the Taj Mahal and come back. Now, just outside the Taj Mahal is the tomb of Itmad-ud-Dawla. And Itmad-ud-Dawla was Nur Jahan's father. And Nur Jahan, she had a whole spiritual side to her. She was Jahangir's wife, the Mughal emperor. And she was very much into Sufism. And and when you go in the tomb and you see the windows, you see the screens, you see the walls, they're all designed with different Sufi designs. There's a scientific meaning to it. The Taj Mahal will show you splendor and majestic beauty and that. But here you will see a higher side to life in this tomb. And people don't go to see it. They just, it's lying outside the Taj. Nobody goes to see it. And sometimes you wonder about that. So the King of Hearts, when he goes, he appreciates these deep spiritual symbols. He appreciates yantras. He now knows how to open up yantras, etc. So he'll arrange his home not just according to beauty, but according to a deep spiritual understanding. But there is relativity here. He may like to drink tea from a beautiful cup, but there's relativity. He's also ready to drink tea from a plastic cup, whilst the queen will insist on a beautiful cup, right? This is the most creative part of the emotional center, and they make very good fashion designers. And the Queen of Clubs we also saw makes designs, but here their designs are more towards the aesthetic side of life, the higher side of life, refined designs. Now, supposing we are listening to music. We're listening to music. Some musicians are technically perfect, right? Technically perfect. So that is they could be the jack of spades or the king of spades. The moving center is working technically perfect. They are very good. But some are centered in the king of hearts. So they may not be technically fully perfect, but they are willing to take a dive into something more creative. Whilst the technically perfect one will not move from the traditional, what you call, laid down norms of music. And sometimes when they take this dive, this jump into some more, a different thing, which is more creative from inside, not something which is laid down, something which has grown within them, it sort of, it hits the hearts of the listeners very deeply. But they are normally, from outside, they look like cool, detached, unapproachable people. And many times people mistake it for an absence of any emotion, absence. So for the king and the queen must move together. If the king is only awakened, then they will look like aloof. Even though they love deeply, you will never be able to see that love. To see that love, you need the queen. And this creates problems in many relationships. They enjoy being alone. They enjoy being with friends, but they enjoy being alone. They can go to a museum, they can go to an art gallery, and they want a deeper understanding of everything. So they're very frightened if their friends come with them and they don't spend enough of time there, they won't get a deeper understanding of it. This is the card which awakens inner communication. So the old ancient artifacts, statues, designs in temples, right? They communicate what is hidden in them to the King of Hearts. The Queen of Hearts will go to a museum and all, but she'll see everything. It's good and nice and with the friends, and she wants to make it a picnic. She doesn't want to go alone. She has to make a picnic out of it. They have a beautiful sense of proportion, and they know exactly which painting to put where, what to hang where, in sense of proportion, right? Now, if you see, most of Leonardo's work is in Fibonacci relationships. In each, there are mathematical relationships, mathematical formulas in each of his paintings. So there's an outward beauty to his paintings, but there is a deeper mathematical mystic beauty to his painting. Similarly, if you see the Mahabharata, outwardly it looks like lovely stories. You can tell them to children. They also enjoy them. But when you go deeper into the Mahabharata, you feel all the knowledge of the world lies in this one book. Now we saw the other cards also have kings, and once the King of Hearts awakens, it can take the help of other kings. That is, it wants to, what do you call, understanding something in visual design. It takes the help of the King of Spades. It wants to bring out an intuitive capacity to understand what illness a person is going through. It takes the help of the King of Clubs. So this is one card which can communicate with the other cards. Once this is awakened, as it awakens, it brings such a richness, variety, and joy in our lives. Because each moment there is an appreciation of the higher, each moment there is a perception of the higher. And when it opens with the rise in consciousness, it leads to a different world altogether. So we must make this effort to awaken the King of Hearts. We saw that the best way is to work to rise above the qualities of the Queen of Hearts, study the qualities of the Queen of Hearts, and to rise above those qualities. And another effort we can make is to try and understand the higher side of life, whether it is in music, whether it is in painting, whether it is in sculpture, or try to appreciate and open up something within us which appreciates the higher side of life, right? And that will slowly awaken the King of Hearts. And if we can make the conscious effort to be conscious each moment, the higher intelligence will descend and will move spontaneously into the King of Hearts. So I'll stop over here, right? If anyone has any questions, we can take them for 5 minutes. I'll just take 8, 9, and 10, the 3 cards in the King of Hearts. 8 is appreciation of beauty, the ability to create intricate mystical beauty. 9 is the center which allows us to go to a spiritual teaching and tries to understand the higher part of the spiritual teaching. It is the willingness to suffer for consciousness, right? So if you want to practice your stuff, then you have to get up early in the morning. You have to be disciplined in the food you eat. So there's a lot of sacrifice on the path of awakening consciousness. And it doesn't happen unwillingly to them, it happens willingly to them. The King of Hearts understands the value of suffering, and it never gets negative about suffering. Here comes the ability to see scale, like we talked about, structure, and where transformation is revealed. And it can go into the very subtle causes of life. We have seen that effects lie on the dimension of the senses, causes lie at the dimension of the mind, and subtle causes lie even somewhere higher. It has this profound perception to understand the subtle causes behind each event in life. And that is how it, what you call, understands the truth of life. So I'm going to stop here. Any questions, if anyone has, I'll take them. Yeah, please.
You talked about when judging unfairness. Let's say person A is cheating on person B and cheating some, let's say, like you said, dividing of, let's say, family property. And I'm observing it, and I can take it to scale and see that this person, even at scale, doesn't look fair. The person doesn't have too many good qualities. So how do you what's the mechanism? I know I can understand that my consciousness, I should not get too perturbed, but how does one handle this in society? How do you handle this?
There's always a middle path. There's always a middle path. Uh, uh, this is a small thing like family properties. And first of all, we are too attached to our properties. And we have this deep sense of what do you call, justly this should come to me. This is just. And we can't see the subtle causes of things. Like we talked about the subtle causes of things. One of my personal experiences, I've not talked about money this time, is over the years in handling money, seeing how my guru handled money, seeing how Ramdulare Bapu handled money, is I've come to this inner understanding, this inner sensitivity that money is something alive. And money has its own way. It wants to flow in a certain direction. Can you understand what I'm trying to say? So when we realize that nothing is ours, it all comes from some central bank. I think this house is mine, but it comes from some central bank. I use it for some time. I enjoy it for some time, and I can't carry it with me wherever I go. Can you understand? So it doesn't belong to me. The only thing that belongs to me is consciousness. The only thing that belongs to me is understanding. Because consciousness, understanding, will, attention, being, these are the things which fly across time. Can you understand? Nothing else flies across time. And one more thing, involuntary suffering flies across time. You know, I have a joke that the god of death has come, right? And the god of death tells you that I'm going to take away your home, I'm going to take away your family. Now there's no family left, nothing left. You got to go. But he says, I'm not going to take away your suffering. You carry it in a bag with you wherever you go, right? And we suffering, involuntary suffering, it cuts across time and space, right? So when we understand the subtle causes in life, and one of the causes, money being the third force, it is not tamas, it is not rajas, it is sattva, the grossest form of sattva. And money has its own intelligence. And when we sense money, we feel money, then we ask money, in which direction do you want to go? Where do you want to go? But when we say, this is my money, then we are raping money. Can you understand? Then we are living in that this is mine and this is yours, this is just and this is unjust. And the division has to be 50% and it can't be any other way, right? But we find our way around and we try to understand where money wants to flow. It loves to flow, and it loves to flow in its own direction. I'll give you a simple example. Once I was traveling somewhere, and somebody phoned me, and he's saying, I'm in a car showroom and I want to buy this bright red car. So my first reaction inside was, how can you buy a bright red car? Can you get it? So I just paused. I didn't give him an answer. And then we were traveling in a car, and I looked at the car in front of me. It was a bright red car. I said, buy it. Can you see? Money wants to flow in a certain direction. We must be able to recognize where money wants to flow, right? And I would request you to go on YouTube. Just recently, I've given a talk on money in Los Angeles. I've given it a couple of. Please try to, if you.
It's not just about money in general, about injustice that you see in the world.
Everything that happens is just.
So
that happens is just. It cannot be otherwise. And we cannot, one poet has written a beautiful thing, that when you pluck a flower from its stem, even the furthest star is crying. Can you see? That poet in that state is looking at everything is connected in life. Here I'm plucking a small flower in some distant galaxy. Why should one star cry? But even in that distant galaxy, that star is crying. Can you get it? So everything is connected. In this moment, whatever we are is because of everything else. Everything has an interconnectedness. And when we are able to perceive this interconnectedness, right, suddenly we know this is right. We play the game of life. We play the game of life without aggressiveness. We say, okay, the division should be 50-50. That is the right way. That is how you play in the drama of life. But then you slowly come and you see where what are the subtle causes, and you find your way around it, right?
So to kind of accept the higher order of life, an unseen higher order of life.
Yes. So, say.
How do you improve the conditions of people? Let's say people around you. How do you improve the conditions of people around you when there is injustice?
As long as this monkey is chattering at 120 thoughts a second, I cannot improve anyone else. I take one simple example. I'm looking at you, and I look at you through thought, and I look at you without thought. Is there a difference in perception? If I'm looking at you through thought, I'm only seeing my memory, because memory is a major part of thought. I'm only seeing what I want to see. I cannot see reality until I perceive you without the interference of thought. Right? So true justice is when I can see the situation without the interference of thought. And for that, I have to work. A lot of hard work, inner work, to quieten this monkey up here. It's a lifetime of practice, right? And somebody asked Vivekananda this, and Vivekananda said, it may take a lifetime to quieten the mind, and you may not be successful, but it's still worth the effort. Still worth the effort, right? We see everything, we perceive the world, everything around through thought, right? And we don't know what it means to have a perception which is beyond thought, and that is called as darshan. Darshan, Atha Yoga Darshanam. Can you get what I'm saying? And there are 6 darshans which we have. And the darshan, the art of seeing without the interference of thought, a new perception. Yeah. Sit down, no?
First of all, thank you to you and the committee for organizing this. I just want to get back, like summarize everything. We have learned about all the four centers.
We've learned about 3 centers. One I've not been able to, yeah.
And initially, we learned the practice of pause and
Yeah.
how to approach this. So can you just in few words summarize this and how do we use this in our daily life till we meet you next year?
Say we take a simple way of pausing, breathe in and hold. Right? Now, if your wife is angry, breathe in and hold. Something is going against you, breathe in and hold. Pause. You're stuck in traffic, don't get irritated, breathe in and hold. Right? The basis of all spiritual journey is pause, to stop the negativity. Unless we are free of reaction, we cannot rise in consciousness, because all reactions are mechanical. Right? So our present aim is 2 aims: to be free of negative emotions, because all negative emotions are reactions, and then to be free of reaction itself. Right? And that is our present aim. Look at it, understand it, and try to bring consciousness to these small situations in life. Right? And do practice the exercises. Okay. So thank you once again. Jai Shri Krishna.